Alright, I'm going to show you how I make my sauce. What you're looking at now is all the ingredients you're going to need to make it. And you can get all these ingredients at any well-stocked grocery store. The first thing you're going to need is 3 to 4 tablespoons of extra virgin olive oil, 1 can of crushed tomatoes, that's a 28-ounce can, a can of San Marzano plum tomatoes, also 28 ounces, 12 ounces of tomato paste. Yes, this recipe does have jar sauce in it, mostly for the preservatives. And the closest tasting jar sauce to my sauce is Classico's traditional sweet basil. You'll need a softball-sized onion, 4 medium garlic cloves, fresh parsley, fresh basil, red pepper flake, a cup of dry red wine. You can use Chianti. I've used that in there before, and today we're having Tempranillo in the sauce. A shot of brandy, which adds a little bit of depth. About 12 to 18 sausages. I'm doing 15 sausages today, and I like to use hot Italian sausage. So make sure you get the links. And a box of thin spaghetti. Just make sure that you get thin spaghetti, you don't buy angel hair. I find that my sauce is best right in between the really thin stuff and the regular spaghetti. I find that when I use too thin of spaghetti, that this sauce has a tendency to make a big conglomeration of sauce and pasta. So the slightly thicker thin spaghetti is really the best matchup. So first I'm going to start by cutting up the onion, the garlic, and chopping up the basil and the parsley. So we're going to get started with that. And you can find the recipe for this online. It's a neat 1-page format, and in the video I'm going to post this on YouTube and Facebook, and I'll post a link to the recipe. You can either follow along on this video making it, or you can just take the recipe, follow the directions, and you'll come out with the same result. So let's first start by chopping up all of the necessary ingredients. And I'm going to start with the onion first. So you just want to take the onion and cut off the top and the bottom. And you just want to take a notch, make a slight notch in it like that, about 1 layer deep. And then you can just peel off the outer edge, the outer layer, which you don't want to end up in the sauce. It's usually dry and flaky, so we'll get rid of that. Like I said, we'll take off the first layer here, and we'll go ahead and get rid of this stuff. And then what you do is you take the onion and you cut it in half right across the top here. You have your 2 halves, and just take it and put it flat side down, and make cuts that are about 75% of the way through. And you want to make sure you separate the cuts. So you pretty much just do this. And this is going to give you a really small, diced, sliced onion. That's really what we're looking for. Just take your time. Make sure you do it right. You don't want to cut yourself. You don't want to take a chunk off of the onion, because then it makes it harder to slice. So then we're going to turn it sideways. And we're going to make really thin slices. As thin as you can possibly get it. And what's going to happen is when you cut it really thin like this, it's going to make the onion just melt into the sauce. It's just going to become all one consistency. And you're going to be left with this little hunk here. You can just take this and just cut it up nice and thin so that it's pretty close to the rest of the onion consistency. Just like that. So you can take all of this and move it to one side, and then you can do the other half. Same procedure. You want to get it about 3/4 of the way through like that. So by using jar sauce in this, it goes from keeping in the refrigerator for about 2 weeks to keeping in the refrigerator about a month. So it's going to double your lasting time. And whatever you have left of this sauce, you can just put in the freezer. You don't need to serve it all or use it all up. It'll freeze for a whole year, and you can come back to it next fall. Get rid of that middle piece here. Alright, so we're done with the onion. That's sliced nice and thin. Get rid of these little pieces here. Get rid of this middle piece. And we'll move on to the garlic. So you're going to want to get about 4 medium cloves out of this garlic piece. Alright, so there's your 4 cloves. I'll get rid of the rest of this. Alright, so we can take our garlic cloves, and with the flat side of the knife, you can put the garlic clove down flat. Just take it right here and just give it a good punch, and that'll break up the skin on it. Just watch the knife edge. Just make sure you're hitting the blunt side and not the sharp side. So once we have that broken up, we can just peel the skin off nice and easy. No problem. so we'll get rid of that one. So we'll just start chopping up the garlic. Try to do it as finely a chop as you can. It's not anything critical to get this part really tiny or small. Just make sure you're thorough with it. You don't get any big chunks in your sauce. You just want to make sure you cut off just little slices. Cut off your ends. If your ends look woody like that, just set them aside. You can get minced garlic in a jar if you want, but it's not going to taste the same as the fresh stuff. You want to make sure you get all those aromatic oils that come out of the garlic when you mince it up this fine. So I'd say that's pretty good. Get all the rest of that off. So there's your onion and garlic done. I'm going to go ahead and get rid of this stuff. Alright, so we'll move on to the basil. I'd say you pick off about 15 to 20 leaves. That's probably about right. You can get fresh basil in the store. You can grow it yourself. You can get it in pre-packaged, pre-cut. I would advise against using any dried basil. It's not going to add the same fresh herbal flavor. So I'd say that's probably about enough. You get about a palmful. That's about enough. And you can take the basil leaves and you can arrange them inside of each other. And what that'll do is you'll get a something you can roll up and cut nice and easy. Cut it into ribbons. And it'll make this part pretty quick. Just take it like that. Just roll it up like this. You can kind of just throw these in there on top and just start making ribbons out of these. And just give it a nice chop here, and you've made pretty quick work of taking care of those basil leaves. Just make sure you don't get any stems in there. Make sure you're only doing leaves. So we can set that aside. Just make sure you put these like in halves. Make sure you put your garlic and your onion together, and you put your basil and your parsley together, because they're going to go in separately, but in those pairs. And then I can just take these leaves and just pull these off. Parsley leaves. Try to get as few stems as possible. Probably not a good idea to get too much of the stem. It's going to be that's not really going to cook down all that well. It's not going to get the essence of the parsley, which is more green freshness, adding to the sauce, a little extra complexity. And again, if you can get yourself about a palm full, that's probably about enough. That's probably about enough. So you can just take your basil, just give yourself a little bit of room on your cutting board, and just start chopping. When you first start making the sauce, you're going to probably get compliments from people in the room, or people that walk into your house that day saying, "Wow, something smells incredible." And you might not even have started the sauce yet, and most of what they're going to be picking up on is the onion and the garlic. Maybe a little bit of this, but the onion and the garlic definitely has legs. So give it a good chop. If you get any stems in there, just throw them out. And don't worry if the parsley and the basil become intermixed. Everything's all going in at the same time. So you can put those aside there. And we can go ahead and move on to starting up the pan. We're going to start sauteing or sweating the onions and the garlic. So I'm gonna move us over there. Let's see if I can get a better angle here on this. That's probably pretty good. Okay, so we're going to want to start by obviously removing the lid. And let's see how this looks. That's pretty good. That's a good view. Okay, so we're going to take our olive oil. And just enough to coat the bottom. Let's see if I can do a little bit better on the angle than that. That's a little bit better. Okay, so we're going to turn everything on here. Nothing too crazy, maybe low, medium, somewhere in there. That's pretty good. So once the olive oil starts to heat up, and you can tell because the olive oil will start to thin out and move around. As you can see, I really can't move it very much right now. But once it's on the heat for a little bit, it'll thin out, and you'll see you can actually coat the bottom with it. So while that's going on and that's warming up, I'm going to track down my can opener and start working on cans. And once the olive oil starts to move around a lot like that right there, becomes a little bit more loose, you can leave it on for another maybe 30 seconds and then it'll be hot enough to start sweating. Alright, so we're warm enough now for the sweating. So you can just take the back of your knife and just drop all this in, and try to put the garlic on top, because the garlic has a tendency to burn. So while this sweating is going on, make sure you're moving it around. You don't just let it sit there. You know, I wouldn't go taking your eyes off of it. So once you get it in there, if you don't hear it start to sweat, you can turn it up just a little bit. Like I said, I wouldn't go nuts. You definitely don't want to burn the garlic. That's like the one thing in this recipe that you really can't do wrong. If you burn the garlic, it's going to have a bitter flavor, and we want to make sure we have a nice, smooth, rich, and sweet sauce. So as you can see, that's what you're looking at here. And we want to sweat the onion until you can get like a translucent look to it. Now, I don't know if you can hear that, but it's starting to sizzle now, so we're starting to sweat. So try not to let it sit around too long. Make sure you're in there moving things around a little bit every once in a while, and if you got some chunks in there, just hit them with your spoon and just break them up. And what we're looking for is, as you continue to let this go, the onions will turn clear, or as close to clear as they can get. And once you reach that stage, then you're good. And if you feel like you're at risk for, possibly burning the garlic, just make sure you turn it down a little bit. Felt like maybe it was simmering a little too much there, so. I'm prepping my blender for the plum tomatoes to pulse. So I think while we're simmering there, we'll go do that now. I'll bring it over to the blender. So grab your San Marzano peeled plum tomatoes. You can see them right there. Take your top off here. And just go ahead and add these in. And we'll go ahead and put this on. And you really don't want to go crazy here. You still want to have a little bit of that chunkiness, so I would say if you can count to a full 1 Mississippi on your pulse, that's probably all you need. That's it. Nothing more than that. Alright, so we're going to head back over to the pot here. Make sure that we keep stirring until we see the transparency of the onions change, which I'm not seeing yet. You can see it here. It's not quite yet. Keep moving it around and letting it sweat. Might be a couple more minutes. So when you start working on this sauce, you probably want to give yourself a good hour of prep time, and then it's going to take about 2 hours for the sauce to be fully cooked. So if you want to eat at 6:30, you should probably start at 3:30. Alright, so we're almost done sweating the garlic and the onion. It's starting to turn that translucent, see-through. You can kind of see it here. It's got a little bit of a see-through look to it. So I'd probably only let this go probably another minute. It's released quite a bit of moisture. You don't want to go too long to burn the garlic. That's the one sin of this recipe. You don't want to burn the garlic, it's going to get bitter. So I've pulsed the plum tomato in a blender for a full second. That's it. I still want it to have some body, so. And here's our skillet for the sausages. We're going to be browning in a little bit. I've already put the olive oil in the pan, and I've got my spatter guard. Make sure the olive oil and the grease doesn't go everywhere. Might want to invest in that or use yours. So I'm about ready to put in the tomato. I feel like this is good. It's been sweating for long enough. It doesn't seem like it's sizzling too much anymore, so probably pretty much done. So we can take our tomatoes, our crushed tomatoes, and just put that right on the spoon there and put that in. ahead and take the pulsed tomatoes and put that in. So you can take this and stir it up a little bit. Get everything all integrated there. And now you can take your parsley and your basil. And you can go ahead and just cut that right in there. Got your tomato paste. You can just take a spoon, go ahead and put that in there. So I have two 6-ounce cans of tomato paste. So it's a total of 12 ounces of tomato paste. You want to make sure with the paste we get a nice thick sauce. And you've got your jar sauce you put on top. You've got your 1 cup of wine you want to put in there. That's about right. Finish that bottle. And lastly, you want to put in your brandy. And the brandy will add just a little bit of extra depth. That's probably about a shot. Depending upon the bartender, that may be too much or not enough. So then you want to take all this and stir it all together. It's going to look like a lot of liquid, but as you cook it and simmer it, it's going to lose some of that liquid and tighten up. So I mean that looks like a pretty loose sauce right now, but it'll tighten up as long as you don't keep the lid on it too tight. You give a little bit of room for the steam to get out. You're good. So with that, now I'm going to go ahead and turn the skillet on and get ready to do the sausages. So you don't want to go too hot on those. So once this starts to get going, you can start by putting in your red pepper flake. And it depends upon how hot you like your sauce as to how much red pepper flake you put in. Completely adjustable. I would say I probably put in about a tablespoon. But on the recipe I say two teaspoons. Some people don't like it real hot. I like a nice spicy sauce, so you're going to have the red pepper flake in there, and then we're going to be putting the hot sausages in there. So it's going to be, I mean, fairly hot. I mean, it's not going to blow your head off, but I mean, it's going to give you a nice spicy tingle. So we've got that all integrated now. So we're going to move on to the sausages. So I'm going to move the camera over again. And we'll start doing that. So like I said, you want to make sure that you take your spoon out here. Just set that aside, get ready to mix with that. And when you put your top on, you see that little opening there? That's what you want. You want to make sure that you're letting that steam out so that the sauce can tighten up. Get that moisture out of there. Don't cook it all in. So our skillet's warming up now. And again, the whole thing with the olive oil is, if it's moving around, it's warm enough. If you can smell it, it's warm enough. Just don't go burning it. We'll do our first package of hot sausage. Although I imagine if you had smoked sausage in this, it would be pretty good. So just get your sausages lined up in here, and we're going to do it in batches. So I'm going to do it in 5 link batches. Although I probably could do 6, but that's not really going to get me anywhere. So you're going to want to brown those sausages on 4 sides. So it's going to take a little while. I've personally found that these type of, I don't know if they're grill tongs or what, but these are really good for flipping sausage. I don't like to use the classic salad tongs. I find that these kind of tongs are a little more hard to handle sausage with. I mean, if you only had these, it could probably work, but I like the. I don't know if these are steak tongs or what, but they're definitely not salad tongs. So these are definitely my preference. So you can see the sausage is starting to simmer, and we're going to let that go. I'm going to put my spatter guard on here, and what we're shooting for with the sauce is a really low simmer. I don't think it's really, I mean, it's starting to move a little bit, but you want a nice low simmer, really small bubbles, nothing, you don't want it to look like it's boiling, it's just a really low, easy peasy simmer. So you can hear the sausage starting to go. And then what we're going to do is we're just going to brown all the sausages and put them in the sauce one batch at a time. We're going to take all of the fat and the grease and we're going to put it into the sauce. I'm not adding any extra salt other than that, and that's pretty much about it. It's not too complicated. It's tasty. I know a lot of people have asked me for the recipe, and I thought putting together a video would be helpful if you want to cook along. And if you have any questions, if we're connected on Facebook, you can ask me there, or you can ask me on the YouTube video. When I upload that, I'll leave the comment section open, and you can tell me how much of a heathen I am for putting in jarred sauce. But I have found that putting the jar sauce in there doesn't really change it that much, and it allows me to keep the sauce in the fridge for longer without freezing it. So You can take the jar sauce out if you want, and you could put in maybe some diced tomatoes if you want a chunky sauce. You could put in more crushed tomatoes. Completely up to you, but I make it this way for a reason, and that's for longevity. I like to use this sauce with mussels and clams, and it's just a really great all-purpose house-style sauce. And I know some people call it gravy. I usually call it sauce, but call it what you want. I really enjoy making it, and it really stems from my great-grandmother's recipe from probably maybe 60 to 80 years ago. So I mean, this is a very old Italian recipe that I've kind of modified a little bit to my taste and to make it my own. So we'll check on the sausage now, see how we're doing. So that's pretty much what you're looking for right there. So just, you want a nice brown color. Just do your flip here. Try not to get it in the eye. And you're on your way. And probably turn that down a little bit. Then once you get the first side brown, the rest of the sides are going to go faster. So make sure you're not singeing it, you're not burning it. They're getting to a nice brown color. Like I said, I mean, that's pretty much what you want on each side. If you can do that across 15 to 18 sausages, you're doing all right. So our sauce is starting to move. I don't know if you can see that, but it's starting to get a little bit of a bubble. So just keep an eye on that. Make sure you don't overdo it. And then once our first batch of sausages are done, we're going to stir the sauce up from the bottom. Make sure you get no burning. I'm not going to run the video all the way to making pasta. We do that at the very end, and I think making pasta is pretty self-explanatory. So you probably want to give a look again. And there you go. We have the same color on that side, so we'll do a little raw side up. Like that. Alright, so this is our third side. We'll be doing the fourth. There we go. That's perfection right there. And I think once I'm done with this batch, I'm pretty much going to end the video. I'm not going to show you 15 sausages. I think it's pretty self-explanatory after you get the first batch done. So And I would definitely advise that between batches of sausage that you turn the skillet off, because you don't want to start cooking the pan up too hot and risk smoking the oil and potentially burning the next batch of sausage. So it's a little bit of a pain, but it's worth it to make sure you do it the right way. So I guess I'll show you a good example of it simmering. You can see it right there. It's a very low simmer. You can go maybe a little bit more than that, but I wouldn't let it go too hot. You want a nice low and slow cook. Alright, so I think we're good. I'm going to go ahead and turn the heat off and take the top off the sauce and get ready to do the sausage. You just want to take your sausages one at a time and just plunk them in the sauce. You can leave the grease in each batch, or you can take the grease and throw it in. So if you don't want the grease in there each batch, you can just take it in, throw it in there, and there's your extra fat and salt that goes in, and you just go ahead and you start your next batch. So I hope you enjoyed the video. Make sure that you're taking your spoon and you're mixing the sauce up from the bottom up every 15 minutes. Make sure it doesn't cook to the bottom. I mean, that's pretty much it. You do that every 15 minutes, and once you get to 2 hours, then you're golden. You're ready to go. You can let the sauce just sit for about 15 minutes after it's done cooking. Let it cool down a little bit, and you're ready to go. So I hope you enjoyed this video, and let me know if you have any questions or comments. And thanks for spending your time with me to see how I make my sauce. Enjoy. Manja.